ours. This is what I call an aggressive bear. Look at this. That's it. And this is another bear that we came across, a black bear that's a brown phase black bear. And it was eating the protoplasm on barnacles. And bears are so incredibly creative with their
feet. What we can do is to prevent him from getting any of our food. The worst thing that can happen to a bear is to learn to enjoy human food. He's got to stay on his own fare. So that's why they designed those bear containers, and that's why we wanted to negative condition him when he encountered our camp.
But it didn't work. So the bear kept coming back, and so we packed up our camp to give the bear back his territory.
How you doing, Dean? Well, time to move. Time to move quick.
And it was amazing. I'd watch my wife carrying material down to put into the kayak, and as she would walk down the trail, the grizzly bear would suddenly appear behind her. But anyway, nothing happened, which was great, and that's what we want when we have those experiences, is to not have anything negative happen. Well, here we are in the Opal Range, by Tombstone Mountain, and now this is in the Purcell Mountains. So we're going to bounce around a little bit here, but I'm just finishing up. Oh, a nice little skinny dip, which we can all do later on after we finish this talk. And here's that overhang that I was telling you about in the Kananaskis, near the Memorial Lakes, and our beautiful little camp spot on a very rainy day where we just watched the weather open up. But it didn't matter because we were dry and having good coffee. And here we are now on the summit of one of the peaks, and having some French toast and doing a little bit of goofing around.
See you, yes, my dear Brian.
And you know, like I said, food doesn't get any better. When you cook it up there, it just is so good. There's a real omelet made with real eggs, melted cheese on top. So delicious, shared with good friends. And in Kananaskis, the good rains that we've had the last few springs yield fantastic flowers. There's nothing quite like the meadows. What a celebration of life and color. The seed heads of the alpine crocus, mountain valerian, bladder campion, one of my all-time favorite plants that I'm always on the lookout for, and some of the forest plants that grow up and are such a joy to see in the spring, like this glacier lily that's so enthusiastic about life it pokes through the snow. And then finishing up on a weekend, this is a 4-day weekend, where we had climbed up a mountain range in the Purcell, and the mountains had thrown everything at us with bad weather, but we finally had some good weather to finish off the trip. Here we are having some drinks in the evening made with some glacier ice, and I like to look at that glacier ice and think maybe it's 10,000 years old, and maybe the little holes in that ice, the little air bubbles, are entrapped flatulence of now extinct mastodons. Just maybe. Anyways, sharing good times with friends. Here we are having a long, drawn-out breakfast on the last morning of a 4-day hike that we did, and we were letting our gear dry out after the rain had pelted us for most of those 4 days, and now we're just having a nice, relaxed breakfast before we hiked out. A friend of mine makes fun of my wife's hiking backpack, calling it a British telephone booth because it's the same color. But anyway, there we are, getting organized to go out. And really, there is nothing quite like the freedom of the hills. Being up there on a beautiful day, a calm day in this situation in the spring, where the snow is so hard you're hardly leaving a footprint in it. Right on the summit of a peak, and then having enough time under a blue sky day before we head back out to play around in a crevasse. If you're going to mess around on glaciers, you better know how to get out of a crevasse. And so here we are, purposefully letting ourselves down in, going back in time, going past old lines that indicate snowstorms of long past, down into the bowels of the glacier before we figure out how to climb back out. And then finally, our descent.
The way to come down a slope. Whoa! Oh! Full pack on, heading down at a pretty good clip. Mighty nice feeling. Doing a nice descent here, back down, eventually back down to the car. This is what it looks like.
And as I mentioned before, my wife is one of the best bump skiers I've ever seen. Here we are dropping down at an ear-splitting speed. probably 300 meters on this one slide alone.
Oh no!
And then a friend of mine turned 40 this weekend, and he thought that he was starting to slow down. So he said, well, let's go for a hike. When we got out there, up into the Alpine of the Kananaskis, he couldn't slow down. This is up near Warspit Call. Now look at him going up the call. There he is. He's going straight up. Remember, cameras don't lie. This is the way it was. He's going up Warspit Call at breakneck speed. Look at that. Look at that. It's getting steeper, and I can hardly keep up to him. And look now, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Now it's vertical. Oh my gosh. And then suddenly it dawned on me why he had so much energy, why he had so much power to climb up there. It's because he's one of the friends of Kananaskis. He's one of the people that's going to make sure that Kananaskis country stays as Calgary's park long into the future. And here he is summiting out on the Warspit Call. There he is, looking very proud. Not doing perhaps the best thing, holding one ice axe in his mouth, but he's looking very proud and very happy because he's a proud Kananaskian explorer. There he is, holding his ice axes up, walking with all the confidence that a person like this would have. And then finally, he meets up with, well, yes, his wife, who beat him to the top. Of course, he throws down his ice axes. They embrace. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm suggesting you do. Embrace each other. Embrace your neighbors. Embrace Kananaskis. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was very serious. How come you were laughing? Anyway, thank you very, very much. Now I've got a little bit of an advertisement to do here. You know the comment that I made before, I'm 58. When I was a kid, I spent 80% of my time messing around in the woods. And that's what obviously bonded me to this interest in nature and natural history. And it's enriched my life beyond measure. It's taken me all over the world. It takes me on weekend trips out to the Kananaskis and into Banff, and it just makes life so much fun. And I believe that, you know, when I feel frustrated when I was during my workaday world, I'd feel frustrated with an issue or something on Friday, I would go and climb a mountain or ski a trail or hike a pathway, and I'd come back on Monday totally refreshed, and whatever was bugging me on Friday had completely dissipated. I believe that we live longer, live happier, and live healthier if we get out and play. So with that in mind, I started thinking about this thing about kids these days not getting outside, and I started to think about, that's worrying me a bit about the future. And so I started writing these kids books, and I've written 5 of them, and they sell for $10 a piece, but because you're my first customer today, I've made up a bunch of bundles of 5, and I'll sell them for $40 a piece. And but I've got some singles there too, if you just want to take a single. I've pre-signed them all, so there's no hassle with that. And all the money goes to a very good cause. It goes to the Keating Mortgage Fund, which is actually, and then I've got some brochures here. And Civilized Adventures doesn't pay me to do this. I do it because I believe in them. They're an adventure travel company, soft adventure travel company, and I've been guiding for them for years, since before they became Civilized Adventures. It's how I get on all these trips. I lead a trip to Africa, and then after I say goodbye to the group, my wife and I take off to Ethiopia and do something on our own or whatever. And it gives me access to the world, and it allows me to share my passion of nature with the people that come on those trips. And so this is the brochure. Now there's 2 trips I want to call your attention to. One is Kilimanjaro. I'm climbing Kilimanjaro for the Calgary Health Trust this September. If you've ever wanted to climb Kilimanjaro, it's kind of a nice way to do it with a bunch of Calgarians, but Calgarians that are going to be doing it with some purpose. It's to raise money for the Calgary Health Trust. So that's not illustrated in here, but it is organized by, or it may actually be in this one, but it's organized by Civilized Adventures. And the Calgary Health Trust has a program plan to help you prepare for a Kilimanjaro climb. I climbed it a number of years ago. It's a big mountain. It's not to be taken for granted. Yes, it's a walk up, no question, but it's a big walk up. It's just below 20,000 feet. So, but I was unprepared when I climbed it. I went along because a good friend of mine organized it, and we had a great group of climbers, and we had so much fun on the mountain. But I didn't realize how beautiful the mountain was. I didn't realize how important it was to climb Kilimanjaro until I was on it. So there's some food for thought for you if you want to cross something off your bucket list and do it with some meaning. The Calgary Health Trust is going to set up the exercise program to give you some advice on how to do the climb, and they also have a program in place to figure out how you'll raise the money, because obviously it's a money-raising program for them. Also, something that is not mentioned in here is a program that I'm doing to look for bubble net feeding whales this coming fall, or this coming July in the Alaska Panhandle. There's 4 spots that just opened up on a trip that was sold out up until about 3 days ago. So, and if you've never seen bubble net feeding whales, it's quite extraordinary. Humpback whales, maybe 5, 6, or a dozen of them will come nose to tail. Actually, I've got a very short video, which I'd love to show. It's because you have to see it to believe it. It's really quite astounding. The bubble net feeding is a cooperative feeding process that some whale species do. Humpback whales are famous for it. I actually witnessed bubble net feeding humpback whales just a couple of weeks ago. I was in the Antarctic, and we actually saw the bubble net feeding down there. But the way they bubble net feed in this part of the world is significantly different. Let me just show you this. I'll just rip ahead here. A sec. Okay, I'm going to turn it up.